Sup? Welcome to the Tedeschi Trucks podcast. This is episode number 25, and I am Adam Choit. To follow this show, it's at Tedeschi Trucks Podcast on Instagram, and I'm at Adam Choit on Instagram as well. And of course, I have no affiliation with the band. This is not an official podcast or anything. I am just a fan. But if you're listening and you're enjoying the show so far, I'd appreciate a 5-star positive review on iTunes, and please subscribe as well. These things are definitely helpful for the show. So, today's guest is musician Conor Kelly. Originally from New Jersey, he spent most of his childhood living in Colorado. These days, Conor lives in Nashville, but he recalls the early musical influences of his mom, dad, and his uncle Sean, who introduced him to the Allman Brothers Eat a Peach album. We talk lefty guitar, his band Waker, and the grind of the music life. Conor has had some amazing experiences, including taking guitar lessons from the one and only Jack Pearson. And of course, we talk our love for Tedeschi Trucks Band as well. Let's just get into this one. Here's Conor Kelly. So it's good to see you today, Conor Kelly. Thank you for joining me on the Zoom.
Of course. Thanks for having me, man.
Oh, I appreciate it. You're out on out on the balcony in Nashville. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm out on my balcony in my apartment in Nashville, just enjoying the night. Super stoked to be a part of this, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, of course. It looked like you were showing me before the city in the distance or whatever. That looked cool. The kind of the little bit of the skyline. Is that what you showed me before?
Yeah, it's great, man. It's Nashville. It's just such a cool town, and at night, especially, this time of year, we get really beautiful evenings, nice cool weather out here. So just taking advantage of it before, it gets colder, I guess. But
yeah, you're holding up okay though during this super fun 2020.
Oh my gosh, man. Yeah, I am. I'm lucky that I am. It's not the same for a lot of people, but it's been a pretty introspective year for me personally, and I think everybody's kind of going through something similar.
Oh, for sure. Everyone's dealing with something, going through something, reflecting, struggling. Yeah. Everyone's got something on their mind or in their lives dealing with.
It's true, man. I was telling one of my friends the other day, it's like everybody's becoming a master botanist and a sous chef, and everybody's learning how to make fried rice and like all that stuff.
New skills. It's either I feel like people are going in one direction or the other. Either you're learning new skills and taking the time to catch up on things that you've been meaning to do, or you're just eating and giving into depression or something like that. Which I don't blame people. It's
right.
It's tough times for sure, and I feel pretty lucky myself. But why don't we get into your life and your musical life, and you could tell me about it. And I was reading a little bit about you. You were born in Jersey and grew up mostly in Colorado. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's it, man. Yeah, so I was born in Montclair, New Jersey, and I basically, everybody asks me where I'm from, and I am from New Jersey, but definitely most of my life I lived in Colorado, and that's kind of the place I call home when I'm not in Nashville.
Sure.
Colorado's been like a very formative and it's just been a huge part of my life and really has shaped me into the person I am today. So basically grew up in Jersey and spent a lot of time.
When did you move? I was gonna ask, when did you move to Colorado?
I moved to Colorado in the fall, in late August of 2001. So, I'm 27 now. I was pretty young. How
old was that? You do the math for me. What grade were you?
I think I want to say I was
math. You don't remember what grade you were in?
I think I was 9.
Yes. But I guess what I'm asking is what are your memories of New Jersey and growing up? And I did read a little bit about you and your mom's influence with her music, but what jumps out at you from, being a young kid in Jersey and in terms of your musical influence, and what were you hearing?
Definitely early on being from New Jersey, I guess taking a step back, being older, it's kind of funny, and maybe it's just me having my ear to the ground when it comes to New Jersey things, but it's almost, I feel like almost every musician is from New Jersey originally. And that's probably just been my upbringing and, what I've been exposed to. But, I kind of started listening to music in New Jersey based on the artists that kind of grew up there and, got their start there. The biggest New Jersey influence for me was definitely Springsteen.
Right.
That was a big part of my musical upbringing, especially on my dad's side. And my mom, was a big Bon Jovi fan. And, there's just a ton of New Jersey influence there.
Sure.
But yeah, basically in New Jersey when I was growing up, my early memories of it were just really just what a stark contrast to what I was exposed to in Denver and Colorado. Super lush. Every time I get back to Boston, I kind of am reminded of New Jersey a little bit because, my girlfriend has family out there. So very colonial, very green. And, a lot of highways, a lot of traffic.
I've been there. I'm from Long Island originally. I'm from the East Coast
Oh,
as
really?
well. Yeah.
That's
Mm-hmm.
awesome. Yeah, I know. I have a bunch of buddies from Long Island and
Northeast vibes.
yeah, Northeast vibes. Yeah, man. But yeah, I mean, New Jersey was great. Definitely a lot of childhood memories. But Denver is really, kind of the place I really call home and hang my emotional hat, so to
Sure.
speak. It I was in Denver, Colorado, especially the climate is so dramatic. Just the other day, my family said it was like 95 degrees, and then literally the next day it was a blizzard, and the next day all the snow melts, and here we go again.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so it was cool, man. I got to, live the life, live a really, really amazing winters in Colorado. Skiing became a big part of my upbringing in my family, and I played baseball my whole life, and so that was a big part of my life in Colorado too. And I didn't start playing music until I was really eighth grade, just before getting into high school. So I don't have any of that playing guitar and learning how to play music when I was 8 or 7. Like a lot of these guitar prodigies like Derek.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, and so basically, my musical upbringing, my mom listened to a lot of Rod Stewart. Some of my early influences were vocal based. Rod Stewart and Luther Vandross, I remember vividly, like my mom just playing that all the time in her boombox, and so I really started understanding things at an early age, like dynamics and vibrato and just stuff that's kind of in the listener's subconscious. I was just exposed to a lot of singing when I was young, and like I remember, this is kind of a funny memory, but I remember my mom used to work at a radio station, and so there was one day where I checked like the little flip top on the boombox, and there was a CD in there that had like a giant gold star on it. So I was like, oh, I wonder what this is all about. And I pressed play, and my mom was like, turn that off, you can't listen to that. And I was so enamored by this sound I was listening to, which was the radio single for Bohemian Rhapsody. She was like, turn it off, because there's some unsavory content in there for youngins about putting a gun against somebody's head and like.
Oh yeah. It's got the thing. I guess that's true. I'm like, there's no obscenity. There's no.
I know there really isn't. There were different times. But my mom for sure, I would say was and probably is my biggest, musical exposure conduit. She was really opened up music for me, and in a more modern sense, I remember for my 10th birthday, we took a family trip back home. I was living in Colorado at this point, and went back home to New Jersey. And I have an Uncle Sean, shout out Uncle Sean. Um, he was like a legit deadhead and has been to, hundreds of shows. And so for my 10th birthday, he gave me a gift of just all these amazing first, original pressings of incredible vinyl, which at the time was not nearly as popular as what it is now. But
Yeah.
it was just so cool. He gave me, Are You Experienced? The Richard Betts album, some Derek and the Dominoes stuff, and a really cool Europe 72 Japanese pressing, which is super rare. But I got Eat a Peach that day, and that was it changed my life, forever. It was truly that moment you have that you hear musicians talk about, where you put on a record and you just hear this crazy sound and these beautiful harmonies that are coming from something that isn't a vocal. And at that age, you don't really apply that to stuff like guitar, especially in the 90s when, there was a lot of grunge and, post-punk music going on. But that, my Uncle Sean was really my conduit to getting into the Allman Brothers and bands like the Grateful Dead. And just like, I remember Traveling Wilburys was another one that he really got me into, and just really songwriting focused groups. So yeah, that's pretty much how I got started, man.
Cool. Did you say you had siblings or no?
Yeah, so I'm the oldest of four. So I have a brother who's younger than me, a sister who's younger than him, and a youngest brother.
Gotcha. And when Uncle Sean gave you all this music, how old did you say? You probably were like 11 or 12 or something like this? Is before how old?
I think I was 10 or 11. This was before I started playing guitar. And I think the other, really cool part of that experience was my family didn't have a record player. So those records didn't get a ton of spins when I, first got them. But I remember that day I listened to all of them at my grandmother's house, and Eat a Peach, that was the one that just, got me. And, I'll never forget hearing the solo on Ain't Wasting Time No More that, I'd come to find out later wasn't even Dwayne Allman playing that solo. And it was just like an incredibly moving, it was just that sound. I've been so drawn to it for a really long time. So.
Yeah, no doubt. What about your siblings? Were they into music too, or are they into music too? What were they kind of like 90s grunge kids or something like that? What were your siblings and friends listening to? Like, because I'm guessing you were different than them.
Yeah, I think so. So music for my especially my immediate family was never really prominent. I don't come from a family of musicians. Really, I'm the first in my whole family, which is kind of a cool thing for me. It's something that I truly kind of wear as a badge of discovery for myself. Music was something that entirely I stumbled upon and grew a love for, and wasn't force fed to me like it is for some musicians. So, nobody really in my family was especially interested in playing music. My mom was really interested in listening to music, and my dad, played the occasional Zeppelin album. But my siblings, that was never really a part of our, upbringing. I know now they're very into modern stuff, and my sister, loves going to festivals. It's funny, my band, we've played a bunch of festivals, and like I remember we did Electric Forest a couple of years ago, and I saw my sister out there in the audience, and I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. I didn't even, think she was going to be here. So it seems that my siblings have broadened their musical flavor since I was a kid. That was never really a memory I had with them, of them listening to music and stuff like that. So
Gotcha. And you were saying kind of your early influences were, vocalists like Rod Stewart, Luther Vandross.
Yeah.
Were you singing at all as like a kid? Were you interested in singing? Did you try to sing? Was that ever a thing?
Not really. I would definitely try to imitate it, and it was something that I took more seriously for sure when, I started pursuing my own career and a band. But when I was a kid, no, not really. I think I definitely did, understand the appreciation for like the technique and the skill that requires, because you try singing in the shower, or you're listening to somebody else sing in the car and you're just like, man, it does not sound like that.
When I do it, yeah.
Yeah. But no, I wish I did though, looking back, man. A lot of singers are really shy, and I'm like that sometimes. And, I kind of wish I wasn't, because I feel like if I had a little bit more runway, I might be a little bit further along than where I am today. Of course, it's not like my main musical focus, but
Sure.
it's definitely been there every step of the way for me. And, if I'm trying to find something on the guitar, I'll try to sing it first, and then, fiddle around until I find the notes and stuff like that. But
That's smart, and I've heard many musicians, talk about that. If you can say it, you can play it. If you can sing it, you can play it, kind of thing. It keeps you
yeah,
thinking melodically rather than just playing scales or getting obsessed with the fretboard
yeah,
and how
definitely.
you, and things like that. I play a little guitar too,
I know,
just
I
for
see it in the background.
yeah, it's behind me. That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
That's right. So
that's
I'm
awesome.
guessing Uncle Sean's albums led you to playing guitar. Is that correct? Do I have that right? I'll let you tell that part of your journey.
Yeah, so the guitar part, it's kind of like, I would say there's three little parts to it that, all combined into this I got to be playing guitar. For sure, it was Uncle Sean, showing me this stuff, and I feel like as soon as you have the inkling to play air guitar, you gotta just put one in your hands and just see if it's gonna work. And for me, I had that at a very early age. I was like playing air guitar to songs and listening to the Allman Brothers, and listening to Fillmore East, and Derek and the Dominoes, and Blind Faith, and like a lot of those early. I was into some really early rock, and like even
Yeah, I
early.
love all that stuff, of course.
Yeah, it's so good, man. And so that's one part of it, and then the other part is on that same side of the family. I have an uncle Frank, who I remember, it might have been even on the same trip. Um, he was like, I was telling him I was getting into rock music and stuff, and he was like, well, I have a guitar, right? And he's totally a blue collar. I think he was at that time he was literally a steel worker in New York City. So he's like that dude that Bruce Springsteen sings about in
I was
every
just
song.
gonna say that. That's exactly what you took the words out of my
Yeah,
mouth.
yeah, he's that guy, man. He's putting his hard hat in the truck and driving into the city, and like, working on stuff like in the city. Um, and so he was like, well, I got a guitar, you should come check it out. And we went upstairs, and I'll never forget, he pulled out this case, and it was just like a black, I'm pretty sure, looking back, I'm pretty sure it was a Les Paul Studio, which you know uh, I think it was from the late 80s, maybe, or early late, I think it was late 80s. But man, it had two chrome pickups and some knobs and some switches, and I was just like, it was like reverent, and it came out of a case. And it was a very moving, like, psychological experience that I had, seeing really like a guitar for the first time. I think that's the first time I probably saw a guitar in person, like an electric guitar. And I was just, and he pulled it out and played like, he probably played like Iron Man or Smoke on the Water or something. And he had like a little Marshall set up and stuff. And I just remember being like, I remember I had that desire to play, but I just couldn't, because I didn't know how to play anything. And so that was with me for a very long time. And then,
Was that a
finally,
lefty? I was gonna ask you, aren't you a lefty? I'm guessing his guitar
yeah,
wasn't left. It was. You're gonna figure that out. I'm
yeah.
guessing.
So I am a lefty. At the time, I didn't know, that was a different thing. Um, and I've got this kind of a cool story about my first guitar. Was kind of discovering that I was left-handed. But um yeah, so those were two moments specifically that geared me toward the guitar. And the third one was, flash forward. I remember I was in fifth grade in Colorado, and this kind of ties into, my songwriting buddy Chase, and singer of the band that I'm currently in and play with, and I love. It's like my life. Um, but I remember he was playing in a band called Admit One, and they played like the talent show. And I think it was seventh grade. And I was just like, man, like I want to do that. I want to be up there. I want to have the experience of being a part of the show, and not sitting back and watching. And so that was kind of like the last straw. I at that time I did own a guitar. I owned like a classical guitar that I got when I was 12 from Santa. But I didn't really connect with it until electric guitar popped into my head, and I remember after I saw that little talent show, I was like, man, I just gotta play. So I got a guitar as like a graduation present from middle school into going into high school, and the rest is history, man. I've just been playing guitar ever since. So
That's cool. What was that first guitar that you got?
yeah, so it was a classical guitar. It has nylon.
Or the electric one. I mean, the electric one.
Oh, the first electric, yeah. So
yeah.
it was an Epiphone Les Paul, and it had like a dot neck, and it was just and it was sunburst too. So that was the other thing, was just like, I remember my uncle Frank, the guy who gave me the guitar, or the guy who showed me his guitar. I remember he had like a Guitar World magazine with Dwayne Allman playing his Cherry Burst. Like it's a photo everybody's seen. It's like
close enough, and you were close enough to that with your Epiphone sunburst.
Like, yeah, I was like, dude, my mom is willing to buy this guitar for me, and it looks like Dwayne Allman's guitar and Clapton's guitar, and so I had to have it. So it was a sunburst Epiphone Les Paul, and it just took me down a very long road that I'm still on, and it's been so much fun, man.
How did you get, I mean, once you got the guitar, where did you go from there? Were you taking lessons? Were you on YouTube? Were you reading books? Were you just learning on your own? Do you have a good ear? Like how did you learn?
Yeah. So to backtrack a little bit, that electric guitar wasn't my first guitar. My first one was like as I was saying, it was like it's a classical. And I got it for Christmas when I was 12. And I remember the day after Christmas, there was a guy coming to the house to like give me my first guitar lesson. And I remember taking it out of the case and just being like, immediately understanding intervals on the guitar, and like, 0-3-5 is like the recipe for Smoke on the Water. And I just I was just like, okay, I can kind of like get this. And so I remember the dude came over to give me a lesson, and he was like, all right, pick the guitar up. And I did. And he was like, oh, like you're picking that up the wrong way. And I was like, okay. So I tried just flipping it around, and I was like, that does not feel natural to me at all. And so he was like, okay, well, if you want to play the other way. I remember I did that whole lesson right-handed. And at the end I was like, he was like, if you want to like try it the other way, you're probably going to have to get the strings flipped around. And so I remember very vividly sitting in the parking lot of the music store my mom bought this guitar at. And I was like, Mom, I want to get the strings flipped around so I can play it the other way. She was like, okay. Cause she didn't know like, what changing the strings on a guitar meant. It was kind of like, you're ripping the guitar apart. I don't know how to explain it. It's just kind of the way it was. But
sure.
She was like, okay, here's your choice. You can either change the strings and like get the nut modified on the guitar, because there's a little bit of modification that you have to do to make a guitar lefty. She's like, we can either pay the money and do this, or you have to learn right-handed and I'll keep paying for lessons. But if you do the lefty flip, I'm not doing lessons anymore. So I was like, I want to do the lefty flip. Let's do it. And so basically I just taught myself. I just, YouTube wasn't a crazy thing when I started playing guitar, so it wasn't really a resource I gravitated towards. So I just like started listening to records and, music on my iPod, and I just basically taught myself, how to play. I learned all the notes on the fretboard from the bottom two strings, and from that I started to understand like how chords worked, and you know, I just kind of let my ear go, and so I'm self-taught for sure. So
Wow. Is that all that you've ever done? What about, I mean, it sounds like you figured out some theory on your own, but no, you never took any real formal lessons, even virtually, and even like later on with
yeah,
YouTube or books, scales,
yeah.
charts, any of this kind of thing.
So this is, I mean, you're opening up a bit, kind of a bit of can of worms here, because I did end up taking lessons, probably 3 years ago at this point. It was my first time ever getting formal instruction, and it was with Jack Pearson. And,
Wow.
because he's a Nashville guy, and I remember, you know, I I was playing guitar one night at a venue down here, and he popped in, and it was like a little jam situation, and he got up there, and it
With
was like,
you?
no, he not that first time. He just got up there playing with the house band. They were just playing
Gotcha.
shuffle or something like that. Um, and I'm trying to think of words that aren't cuss words right now, but it
Go
absolutely,
for it.
it was just so mind-blowingly something I've never seen before or felt before listening to another player. And I talked to him a little bit after the show, and found out that he gave lessons like right down the street from where I lived. And I was just in this like, holy shit, that's the guitarist that was in the Allman Brothers. And I could like go down the street and take lessons from him. So it wasn't that easy. I remember going down there and formally meeting him for the first time, and finding out that the list of people that, wanted to get lessons with him was longer than, your arm or whatever. And but I just kept popping my head in. I was not going to take no for an answer. I needed to like at least sit down with this guy and ask him some questions and try to understand how his mind works. And because he's truly, I mean, I revere Jack as like probably the best guitar player I've ever seen. He's absolutely, I think the world of him and his playing. And but I just kept bugging him about it. And one day he was like, it was later on down the road, he saw me playing again at the same venue, because it was kind of like the local hang on Saturday night as you go there. And like, that's how I met a bunch of my friends and musicians and stuff. And he showed up one night when I was playing, and, I'd gotten a little bit better, and he was like, okay, like, let's do some lessons. Let's do it. And, I did that for a couple years, and, some of my favorite memories ever, learning guitar and being on that path was working with him. So, before Jack, and I had come very far, I would say, as a guitar player, never having a lesson, just kind of following my ear and picking along. But yeah, I did take some formal lessons with Jack a few years ago, and it definitely shaped a lot of my understanding about music. So.
No, that's cool. I want to ask more questions about your lessons actually with him.
Yeah.
But let's go back a little bit first and tell me like where once you started to, I guess you must have got better at guitar, just some listening and playing and practicing, and you started to get into bands. Like it sounds like, it looks like based on your bio. So tell me about like that, your high school playing and how that all went down.
So guitar playing for me was never a chore. It was something that I literally did and do still nonstop. I played and play all the time. And, I remember starting high school, which is really when my playing started to kickstart, 13, 14 years old, really when I started to take it seriously. I remember lying to my parents about what time school started, so they would drop me off an hour early, and I would sit in this place in my high school called Tradition Hall, which was like the main atrium. And I would sit and I would plug in like my little 5-watt Marshall like amp and literally just play guitar every morning for an hour. People were just like shaking their head at me, people, telling me to turn down, and, I'd be late to class, but I'd still be in school, and I would just be playing guitar.
Wow. In the school.
In the school, in Tradition Hall. Yeah, just
Electric guitar too.
Yeah, electric guitar. I wasn't trying to blow the roof off the place, but it was just a huge part of my discovery with music and playing. And so basically one thing led to another. I started the guitar club at my high school, which is still going strong. I'm super pumped about that.
Wow.
And yeah, I started a band, or I joined a band that my best friend Chase was in. And I just started writing songs. Like I got bit really hard by the creative aspect of playing guitar. I spend a lot of time learning songs, but every once in a while you hit a bad note and you're like, that's kind of cool. Maybe I could like write a song. And that's kind of, where my passion for guitar lies mostly today, is just through the actual playing and writing aspect of it, and discovering new things. And so that was basically my entire high school experience, was practicing guitar nonstop, writing songs, and playing shows with like my high school band. Um, and so yeah, those basically were the early days. We played all the shitty clubs in Denver, and all of our high school friends would show up, and we would, we won the Battle of the Bands a couple times, and I learned about what it means to sell tickets, and like all that kind of stuff happened.
Yeah, the business side a little bit.
The business side, oh yeah, man. And so yeah, that was basically those early stages. But I always remember we had a singer at the time who, Chase was the drummer of that band, and we did a lot of the songwriting together. But he always had a really great voice, and it was something that I thought when we were very young, even though his instrument has developed so much over the years, that it was a great voice. The singer we had in the band, it was just like, we'll just let him sing, like who cares. But once high school wrapped up, I remember him and I had a big conversation, and we were like, let's move to Nashville together and let's do this, do it the right way, and do the band the way we want to. And so we just moved to Nashville, and just a big, heavy focus on songwriting and, singing. And yeah, it was great. And it still is great. I'm still on that path, and I love it so much.
So he went from the drummer to the lead singer. Is that right?
Yeah, I remember when we were working on our first songs, our very first EP ever. It was myself, him, and the bass player that we still, have in our band, all of us. And he played drums on it. And I remember there was a very big conversation where it was like, man, like you just got to be singing, like he's an incredible drummer too. And we still play in a actually, believe it or not, an Allman Brothers tribute band together when we're like off the road, not doing original stuff. And he's the drummer of that band. So we just have that amazing outlet. But we had a big talk, and it was like, man, we gotta try building the band the right way, and we'll shape it around his vocals. And, I remember even giving him like a couple guitar lessons, because, he played guitar the way that songwriters play guitar, as a tool to like write songs.
Sure.
I definitely remember there were a couple times where, we really sat down and worked a couple things out on guitar, and now he just, he can pick it up and go. And so, yeah, the singer, frontman, guitar, acoustic guitarist of our band, is also an amazing drummer. And so that's kind of how we wrote and still write a lot of our music. So.
Cool. I want to ask you about playing guitar at your high school in the atrium, because where do you get like the courage? Were you self-conscious at all about what other people might think or say, or not think you're good, or not like what you're playing, or think you're weird? Like where do you get the confidence to just put yourself out there like that?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I guess like looking back, I don't know if I ever thought of it that way. Like I never I don't know if I was like confidently playing guitar down there. I think it was just like I enjoyed the solitude of it in a
Right.
really weird way. Like I loved being able to be in school an hour early when nobody was there, and I could just play with like the reverbs of the room and just like bend notes. And it was
Try
just,
things.
yeah, it was like my first destination playing guitar outside of my bedroom. So and it sounded beautiful in there, and it was just something that I just love to do, man. Like I had a lot of kids that, it's funny, we still get out to Colorado a lot. And it's probably I think it's our biggest market actually for our band right now. And there are kids that will come up to me after the show and be like, dude, I remember, I'm so proud of you guys. Like I remember when you were playing guitar in the atrium and like all this stuff. And I was like, thanks, man. I remember a lot of you guys were shaking your head at me, but
Yeah. Thinking you're weirdo.
yeah, for sure. And you know
You're
what?
doing
I
your
mean,
thing.
to be fair, I probably was. Um, I've always been kind of a little bit different in that way, but it was just something that I obsessed over, and I still obsess over. So I think that part of me just overruled any insecurities I had about being shy or whatever. You know what I mean?
Sure. I think I might know the answer to this question, but like when you were in high school, what were your plans or thoughts on the future? College, were you just gonna keep going with your band? Like where were you at, like, with plans, professional plans, music or otherwise, moving
Yeah,
forward?
I just knew at a very early age, and it's a path I'm still on. But and I just remember at an early age, just towards the end of high school, just being like, man, I don't want to be at a certain point in my life and regret not at least giving it a fair shot. And over the years, I've watched a bunch of my friends' bands just kind of fall off the tracks, or they just stop playing for some reason.
Bands that
But
had promise.
yeah, or at least something, because if there's anything I've learned over the last few years, it's that if you're in a band and you really feel like you have something, you just have to work really, really fucking hard to get it done. It's a grind and it's a business, and that's something that I'm still learning. But I remember being very young and just being like, I really want to give this a shot, so I'm gonna give it literally 110%. And you know, and I feel like I have done that and have been doing that. We haven't even talked about college, but like, those were the formative years of my guitar playing. Dude, when I was in college, it was an absolute grind being in a band, like trying to do something. Something that wasn't like sitting in your bedroom playing guitar or releasing an EP on SoundCloud or something like that. Um, so that's a whole nother.
Trying to grow your band and get attention and build a fan base. Is that and a sound, and is that what you're
Yeah,
referring to? All those
yeah, for
things.
sure. I mean, to tie in a little bit of TGB here, like I remember. So my band Waker, we've opened up for JJ Gray and Mofro like a ton of times, and
That's awesome.
yeah, and I mean, dude, Todd's in that band. Todd Smalley from the Derek Trucks
Yeah,
band,
of course.
bassist,
Yeah.
and we've become very good friends with him over the years because he's a Fort Collins guy from Colorado. So I remember there was one time where we were just like, hey, man, if we play in Fort Collins, like, we're going to hit you up and you should come out. And he came out and, like, jammed with us and, like, sat in on our set, and it was so cool. But I'll never forget him telling me stories of what it was like being in the DTB and the literal grind, like the things that you don't really hear musicians talk about that you can just really relate to. Like, but the literal grind of sitting in a van for like 10 hours, showing up to a gig, loading in for having the load in, sound check, and wait around for the show experience, which is like sometimes up to 5 to 6 hours of time. And then you just play a 45-minute set because you're probably the opening band for somebody. And then you have to pack your shit up immediately and drive another like 5 hours to either the
It's
next
crazy.
city
I don't
or,
know how you guys do it. I don't know
yeah,
how y'all.
but it's tough. It's really, really hard. And that's something that, you know, it's just like, it's just part of it, man. Like, if you really want to cultivate a fan base, which we're still every day, trying to continue that growth, it just takes a lot of hard work to break through the noise. And, TTB, great example of a band who has been doing that for like the last 10, 20 years, even in their own,
Sure.
before it was TTP, when it was Soul Stew, and when it was, like all that stuff. I remember Todd telling me about just logistically about what life was like for Derek in the in the mid 2000s, like 08, 09, where he was in 4 bands, dude. Where he was in Derek Truck's band, Soul Stew, Clapton's band, and Allman Brothers. And
Right. Yeah, that's insane.
yeah, he was like talking about how Derek did every possible tour that year where he was on, where he was walking to the gig in a van, in a bus, and in a jet. And he was just like he saw every single facet of touring. And it's just, if you want to get to that level, you just have to accept the work that comes with it. And, it's really tough for a lot of people. But for me, it was something I've always wanted to do my whole life. And you just kind of put everything behind you and just really work to get that done. And I still feel like I'm doing that. So
That's awesome. What about any other musical influences come into your life, in college and beyond?
yeah, man. Obviously I want to try and rattle off things that aren't, um, the usual suspects, like, Beatles and, huge bands, Zeppelin, and huge songwriting bands like that. But for guitar, I went through a Fish phase, when I was in high school. I had a high school English teacher who kind of like opened me up to that part of music. And I was it's funny, like playing along to a lot of those songs is actually the thing that helped me understand the modicum of music theory that I have now, was just understanding what sounds are associated with certain things, musically and all that. But I went through basically the usual suspects for guitar influence, and especially metal, like metal, just classic 80s metal. I never got into, really down-tuned guitars and stuff like that, but just growing up, it's a part of it's like a little stone on that cobblestone road that you walk, learning how to play
Sure.
guitar. You learn how to play Master of Puppets, and you learn how to play, Symphony of Destruction or Run to the Hills, or, all these cool songs. So um, I definitely went down that road. So in terms of the guitar, all those things, but especially, going to college and listening to modern music and doing more songwriting, just a lot of, I really like, there's some people that are super averse to pop music, but I think there's something to be learned from every genre and every style. I remember, my English teacher told me once, we were talking about a band called Arcade Fire, and I was just like, he gave me a DVD to watch, and I was like, I just don't get it, man. Like, I don't get this band. I just don't get their vibe. And he was like, well, there's 100,000 people in this venue that they're playing at right now. So there's something about this band that they're all getting that you aren't.
Right. Yeah, what is it?
Yeah, and that perspective like totally changed my life, um, I think there's always something to take from something, whether it's the super popular song that everybody loves to hate or the song that nobody's heard of yet. So really, I've been very open to anything. And plus, the other cool thing is I'm the only electric guitarist in the band, so everybody else plays an instrument that's different than me. So I'm constantly like being influenced and inspired by where their head goes or how they're playing and stuff like that. So
No, for sure. I always love that sound, and I know the Stones have done a little bit of that with their, because having two guitar players in their band,
yeah,
where they'll have, whether it's Mick Taylor or someone else, someone playing electric, and then with the rhythm guitar player playing acoustic or something like
right,
that.
right, right, yeah.
I always think that's a cool sound in a band.
Oh yeah, man, definitely.
For sure. Have you seen Derek Trucks or Susan or Tedeschi Trucks band live?
Yes, I've seen them many times. I want to say I've probably seen them
Wow.
like
How
probably
many?
10 or so, probably.
Hmm.
My first show I saw them at was in Denver, at the Fillmore Auditorium. No, was it? Yeah, it was at the Fillmore. And fun fact, I didn't realize this that night, but there are a couple things about that show that are very vivid, for all the TTB listeners out there. There are a couple things about that show that as a fan, I've never seen them do since. The first thing is, they've done this, but that whole show was filmed, and I didn't realize they were filming it, but you can buy it and download it on YouTube. It's Tedeschi Trucks Band live at the Fillmore, and it's the original lineup, and it's an amazing show. That era of TTB music is some of my favorite, if not my total favorite. It was back when Derek was on the Super Reverbs, and Kofi and O'Teal were still playing in that band. And, you had like the original horns were there. I mean, it was just such a vibe. Um, uh, and I remember Susan, this is really weird memory, but I remember she had a ponytail at that show, which you rarely see Susan with the ponytail. But I just remember everybody came out. I showed up to that show so early because I was like, dude, I am going to ride the rails at this show. I'm going to see them up close and personal. And I was up there, man. I was like front row. I was the kid that Derek gave the slide to at the end of the night.
There you go.
Yeah, and I remember the cool thing was like, I knew I was just like, I want to get it. And I figured out what he played before I showed up. And I bought one, and I gave him mine, and he played like the rest of the set with the one I gave him.
Wait a minute. You bought what? You bought his signature slide or any slide?
I bought his. I was like, I'm just gonna see if I can make it happen. So once he gave me his, he like threw it to me, and I caught it, and I showed him I had another one. He was like, all right, throw it to me. And so I threw it to him, and they walked off stage. The encore happens, and they come out, and they played their encore, and he had which I think was Bound for Glory. They did like Bound for Glory encore, and he played the whole, last song with that. And then, after the show, I was like the parking lot rat, and I waited around for everybody. And
Sure. I've done
that
that many times.
Yeah, man. And so, I've seen him a bunch, man. And, I've done a couple of the Ryman runs out here in Nashville. And
Nice.
yeah, it's been awesome, dude.
Do they know that you're a musician? Any of the band?
Yeah, definitely a couple guys in the band. I'm really good friends with Ryan Murphy. Do you know Ryan actually?
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Dude, well, I got to get you hooked up with Ryan because Ryan lives out here and he's Susan's guitar tech. So,
Nice.
I met him through this venue that, we have mutual hangs at. And, he's been really kind to, introduce me to some of the guys and, it's been super, super awesome. I don't have a personal connection, I would say, with Derek and Susan. I've definitely met them and talked to them and, but yeah, man, I mean, just love those dudes so much. They've got such a home style vibe. It's so great, man.
That's what every single one of my guests has been mentioning and saying in so many words as I speak to one person after another, just talking
Yeah,
about how them as people, like at least how they come across, and as far as everything we see and hear about them is that they're great, not just
yeah.
great musicians, but awesome people, personable and down to earth, and all that for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. Yeah, they've always been so nice to me, and I got Derek to sign the SG, and like I've done all. I feel like I've checked all the TTB boxes, and we're just hanging now and enjoying the music.
Yeah.
So.
You know what I was gonna ask actually? Do you get starstruck at all? Do you get starstruck at all by them or by other musicians? It doesn't sound like it. I mean,
Uh,
sounds like you've had that balance between being a fan and also, you know.
I mean, yeah, I definitely do. I mean, the first time I met Derek, I was like, damn, this dude is so sick, and I'm a taller guy, so I always get the experience of like they're a little shorter than I expected.
Yeah, you think
But
everyone's taller than they.
yeah, but that's not saying much at all. But I mean, first time I met Derek, I was just like, man, that's so cool. Like there he is. And but definitely, man, I mean, definitely the most starstruck I've ever been was seeing Jack like in front of me giving me a guitar lesson. I was just mind blown. Like it was just it, a lot of the people in Nashville call them like total. That's a total Nashville moment, right? That's what that was for me. It was like, dude, Jack Pearson is giving me some like scrub a guitar lesson, or Jack Pearson is teaching me how to play Blue Sky the way that Dickie Betts taught him how to play Blue Sky, and
Yeah,
like
that's
all that kind of stuff. It's so awesome, dude.
yeah. Now that we're come full circle, kind of. I was going to ask, what were maybe some specific things that you remember, um, from those lessons that jump out at you? What was something about his approach or technique or skill or theory
Oh
or
yeah.
or what things maybe jump out at you that's specific?
Well, I mean, I could talk for hours about Jack, but I'll definitely mention a few things. Like, I'll never forget the first time I was in the lesson room and I was like waiting for him to come in, and I was sitting in the chair, and in his chair there was like a blue, it was like a light blue, I think it's Pelham blue Fender Squire Stratocaster, like made in Indonesia or something. And I remember he came in and he's got like a very soft demeanor about him. He's like he is the epitome of speak softly but carry a big stick. That's Jack. Um, and he came in and picked up this guitar and didn't even acknowledge me. And I'm just sitting there like, holy shit, that's Jack. um, and he sits down and just goes after the guitar, just and he looks up at me, he's like, how you doing, little brother? And I was just like, oh my god, can you show me how to do that? That was so sick, what you just played. And so before he showed me anything on the guitar, he was like, I was like, how do you do this? He was like, well, first you got to do this. And he put the guitar down on his lap and he held his hand up. And I know this, isn't a video podcast.
That's how you're doing while you're describing it.
Yeah, you just got to imagine, just stick your hand out at a 90-degree angle in front of your face and just keep your fingers pointed up, like all of them like this, just pointed straight in the air. And he was like, just move your ring finger down, like move that half digit down so that's at a 90-degree angle. And do that with like each finger. And so I watched him and he was like pointer finger, middle finger, ring finger, pinky. And he was like, okay, now do the first two fingers at a time and then the last two. And it was just this moment of like, you must, I call them sensei moments with Jack. It was a total sensei moment. It was like, you have to learn to walk before you can run. Yeah, I've had so many amazing memories of just, he's such a humbling musician to sit in front of. I remember asking him one time about the Allman Brothers. I mean, every single time we were in there, we talked about the Allman Brothers, and he would tell me. He told me a story once about where Greg and Dickie, like before it was while they were kind of courting him to be a band member. When Warren left for that short period of time to pursue Mule, he was telling me the story of like him being at Greg's house and Dickie was there, and they formally asked him, to be in the Allman Brothers, and he said something to me where he was like, like that Dickie said to him, if you're not going to be in the Allman Brothers, you're going to be my guitar teacher because like I need to learn from you, and so
Wow.
like a bunch of these crazy stories. Like I know there's probably a lot of people like guitar players listening to this podcast. One cool thing that I asked him is he's such a purist and he's very much like about playing the songs correctly, and he always hammered that into my head about with the Allman Brothers stuff, like it's really a pet peeve for him and a lot of guys, frankly, who love the music where, musicians are covering it and maybe they haven't done their homework or aren't playing the songs like quote, end quote, the right way. And so I asked him, I was like, Jack, like what's the one thing that you could teach me that you feel like every guitar player or every band that covers like an Allman Brothers song, what's like the one thing that everybody plays wrong? And he immediately was like, he told me it was the B section of La Brea in A minor. You know that song?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have that whole intro section that's that whole part. And then it's this really beautiful, pretty Charlie Parker-esque progression that's like bring, 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 bring. And a lot of people just kind of he told me that a lot of people will just play the top note on the melody. So they'll just play it as single notes. And that's honestly what a lot of the later Allman Brothers versions of that song were. But he showed me that they're very ornate chords. And it was just a really cool moment. I was like, Jack, teach me how to play the thing that everybody doesn't know how to play. And, hey, he taught me how to play that part of the song. And it was just so cool, man. I think the world of that guy. He's also just a classic, just sitting in a room and just really working hard and playing tunes. He thinks about music in a very simple way. He would tell me, don't learn how to play scales, learn how to play chords. And you can kind of like denote scales from the chords. And I think the one little like lesson that I learned from Jack that was kind of like a life lesson a little bit too was he has a reputation in Nashville especially for being the best guitar player in the world who plays like the shittiest guitars. So he always plays like the $80
the Squire or whatever it was.
And he's the guy who's like, how some people are with Les Pauls or like, bursts, like this 59 burst is a little bit better than this 59 burst. He's like that with Squire Strat. So he'll be like, I picked up a guitar that's a Squire and it sucks, but this Squire is amazing. And
that's hilarious.
It is, dude. And I asked him about it one day, and all the Nashville guitar players say that about Jack. They're like, he's great, but I wish he would play a real fucking guitar or whatever. But I remember sitting in the room. I asked him, I was like, Jack, like you're the best guitar player in the world. Like, you could play any guitar you wanted, whatever. And he's got a ton of them. I was like, why do you play these guitars? And he stopped playing and just looked at me. He was like, because it sounds good. And I was just like, oh my God. Oh my God. It was just so humbling and beautiful. And, he's just the best. One more quick little story. I asked him,
Sure.
About calluses. And this was the thing that scared me about Jack. Like all those other things are why I love Jack. And I love this about Jack, but this scared me about Jack. I asked him about calluses, and I was like, Jack, like, what do you do about calluses? Like, I feel like I play all the time. I'm always getting them. And he was like, I've never had a callus. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you only get calluses when you stop playing. And I was like, oh my God, this dude's been, I mean, who knows if that's true, but that's what he said.
I thought you like developed them on your fretting hand. I mean, because I can feel the fingertips on my fretting hand are definitely a little bit harder than on
Yeah. And
my other hand.
what his point to that is the point to that is he never gave his fingers time to develop calluses because he was always playing. When you stop playing, that's when your finger heals up and gets hard and you start developing these pads. And he probably has those, but I
Interesting,
think
yeah.
that was just his little like, just don't stop playing and you'll never get a callus. And I was just like, oh my God, that's so cool. Like you're a superhero, you know what I mean? So
Dude, I was trying to do that finger thing with your hands at the right angle. I'm struggling with that, but I could see how that would be helpful, like doing those types of finger exercises,
yeah,
especially if you to get the pinky involved and
yeah, he's a
because you're
big
really
fundamentals guy.
yeah, you're really doing a big what?
A fundamentals guy, like really
Yeah,
big on the fundamentals.
yeah, because you're really when you're playing guitar, you really are kind of doing every single combination possible with those four fingers. Sometimes the first two, the last two, 1, 3, 2. You know, you're kind of
Oh yeah,
it all comes into play. Single notes, single digits.
absolutely, man. Yeah, definitely.
Sweet. So many good stories. Wow. I didn't know what I was getting into entirely. So much deep music roots, that
Dude, yeah,
have been
absolutely.
passed along to you.
Dude, well, can I flip the script on this really quick and ask you a question or two?
I suppose so, sure.
So I'm curious, I love the podcast. I listen to them all. It's so cool.
Wow, thank you.
What are your favorite TTP eras? Because I've had this conversation with a lot of my friends, and I always loved, not to sound like the guy who's like I always loved the original version, but I always loved the old TTB when Derek was using the supers. That's like my favorite Derek tone, either that or when he was using like the Super 6 reverbs in like, '08 and '09 with the Allman Brothers, like early TTB. I love that stuff, some of the covers they did. What is some of your favorite TTB era stuff?
I mean, I think you can gather just by the fact that I'm doing a podcast that my admiration for that band and their music is like pretty unconditional to the point where it's like I really do
Yeah.
I love it all and I still consume all of it, like, and I just did that recent episode just kind of going back, looking at TTB, some great moments from like 2011 and earlier, and all that stuff's awesome. I suppose maybe, I mean, like I said, I love everything, but maybe Let Me Get By could be my favorite album.
Yeah.
For me, it's more about, I guess, the music more than about the gear or an era or a lineup. It's more about just like the songs. But to ask me what my favorite song is would be like an impossibility.
Right.
I can't even begin to answer that question.
Well, how about to gear it towards going down that same road? What do you think are the 3 TTB songs that you feel like are underrated or underplayed on the road that you think even fans listening to this podcast might not have given a second listen, that you're like, man, you got to check these out?
Oh, that's a tough question off the top of my head because they play I mean they play just about everything, and their shows and their set lists are so diverse and often unpredictable. So they've definitely like played pretty much all their songs. I mean, just jumping off the top of my head, I know they don't play In Every Heart off Let Me Get By too often. I know they just brought Hear Me back. They just started playing that this year before everything shut down. I know they never played the ending off Signs. That's sort of like, it's almost like a bonus track or like, the acoustic thing they do at the end. They haven't played that live, but I don't know. I mean, I'm in all the Facebook groups and most of everyone in there is pretty hardcore and knows all the songs and loves all the songs and is pretty aware of the diverse, catalog and that they pretty much play everything, but I don't know. I have to think more about that. I thought you were going to ask me what are their signature songs. In my opinion, I don't know why I thought that would
they
be.
Definitely have quite a few of those. I mean, the reason I asked,
Harlem.
I remember when I saw the first show, I had like studied the whole record, the first record, Revelator, and I was a big fan. And I remember they played Until You Remember
Right, that
live.
song's great.
That's like one of my absolute favorite TTB songs. And then Don't Drift Away, the bonus track off of
Right.
Made Up Mind. Amazing. Like, I've never seen that one. But yeah, man, I'm just always curious, like what some of your what your sleeper tracks are for them, because they've got so many great songs.
Yeah. Anything that they don't play super often live, I love. Like I'm almost like the wrong person to ask that question too in some regard. I have Tedeschi Trucks goggles on or earbuds in or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome.
Yeah, I've seen them about 20 or so times around that myself.
What's your favorite show that you've seen them at, if you remember?
Oh, my favorite show? Oh, that's another tough one. That's like the same kind of question. I mean, I guess really any of the shows where I was in the very front, because there was a couple of them. I saw them at the Brooklyn Bowl in Las Vegas the last time they were in Vegas in 2014. I want to say that was just a cool show to go to, because it was in it's like a club, and it's like a small, not small, but it's like a club, all standing room, all general admission for the most part. And me and my group, we squirmed to the front for sure. So that was fun. I mean, I'm trying to think what jumps out at me. I mean, I was at the show at the Hollywood Bowl where John Mayer and BB King were there. Where
oh really?
Yeah, where BB tells
video, dude.
Yeah, where John Mayer kind of freezes up and BB King's like, "That's the best I ever heard it," kind of thing. That was a cool show to be at for sure. But yeah, I love them all. Whatever the one I'm at in the present, whatever the next show is, that's the one I'm most excited about. My favorite one. And what I've talked about is, what amazes me is that every show is awesome, but somehow it seems like the band is getting better. Like, I can't even explain it, but the band gets better. Derek, I don't want to say gets better, but he's doing things that I've never heard before. There's always something at a show or on a new live thing that comes out on archive.org, whatever. Like, I'm listening to him, and there's just like, I don't know how he made that sound. I never heard him even do that. Like, there's new things that, like, it's always new.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. One that comes to mind for me was I saw them open up. Like, I've never seen them be the opening band, but I never saw them like in my mind as a opening band, but I saw them at BJCC in Birmingham, which is an arena, them opening up for Panic. And it was like, it was an incredible TTB show, but being able to see Derek, just shred, Derek and Susan just shred You Can't Always Get What You Want up there with like Jimmy and, that whole crew.
Oh, that's on YouTube, right?
Yeah, dude.
I've seen that, of course.
He hits, I think, the highest note on the guitar I've ever heard him play is in that solo on that video.
It's awesome.
Amazing, dude. Yeah. So.
Yeah, some of those moments where that find their way on YouTube, it's like, I was there. That will make it into the favorite moments and memorable moments for us personally.
Oh yeah,
for sure. Wow, yeah, I'm ready to get to a show. I'm ready. Once things hopefully get back to normal.
Yeah, we'll have to open up pretty soon, man.
I hope so. But it's been a lot of fun, and I definitely appreciate your story and your journey and all the music insights and tidbits, and it's been cool. Why don't you tell people where they could find you, follow you, anything else you're working on these days? I'll give you the floor. Anything else you want to talk about, I'll let you do your thing.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, again, thanks so much for having me. Again, I love listening to it, and you're a great dude, and you really bring TTB to, a lot of fans in a unique way, and I think that's really cool. So,
dude, that means a lot to me, and that's the kind of thing that like is keeping me going, for sure.
Yeah, definitely, man. Okay, yeah, so my band, we're a 6-piece band out of Nashville, and we're called Waker, and we've been touring for the last 4 years under Waker, and we've done we've done like all the music festival. We've done Bonnaroo, Electric Forest, Hangout.
Yeah, you've done big tours. I saw on your website you had like all the list of the tours from like 2017 and 2018. Those are no joke. You did a West Coast tour I saw, and those are 20 plus cities and in different states.
Yeah,
Legit stuff.
Right. It's been so good, man. We've done a lot of great support stuff for like Blues Traveler and JJ Grey and Moon Taxi, and like a lot of our favorite bands, and it's been amazing. But so the band's called Waker, and you can check us out basically anywhere where you can consume music content. Instagram, Facebook, it's all at Waker Official. That's our website too. We just released a new song just the other day. Like, it's a total coincidence we're doing this, but yeah, new song. It's called Small Song. It came out just the other day. It's got a really cool, calming vibe. It was like, it's the last song on this upcoming record that we're doing, and it's really the first song of a batch of a bunch of new songs that are kind of shaping us a really cool sound right now. Kind of like how TTB went through the super jammy, heavy phase in the first incarnation, and then Let Me Get By, like you were saying, much more songwriting, flowy, like maybe a little less head-cutting guitar solos, but still beautiful, amazing. So we're kind of in that transformative stage right now, and I think this new song we just put out is super reflective of that. So check it out anywhere music is streamed: YouTube, Spotify. Again, it's called Small Song. So
awesome. I'll be sure to check that out. And how can people find and follow you?
So I'm as we mentioned before, I'm a left-handed guitar player. So I'm on Instagram at Southpaw Guitar. So they can find me on there. My name's Conor. You can find me on Facebook. Say what's up. But yeah, that's me, man.
Sweet. Again, thank you very much. I got to go work on my finger exercise, my Jack Pearson finger dexterity exercises. After I cook dinner, or while I'm cooking dinner, maybe I'll do that. But I'll let you enjoy the rest of the Nashville, the rest of the Nashville night. And let's talk soon.
Thanks so much, Adam. Really appreciate it.
Oh, you got it. Later.
See you, bro.
So there you go. My conversation with Conor Kelly. That was so much fun. I really thank Conor for his time. And I will look out for Waker shows, I guess, in 2021. West Coast tour, maybe? But before I sign off, with permission from Conor, I wanted to play you his band Waker's latest release called Small Song. I'll sign off after this, but without further ado, here's Small Song.
If it gets too heavy, take it off your back. And when you're feeling ready, bring on your attack. These days they may change, and we will watch them go. So when we're feeling ready, we can start the show. Nothing lasts forever, oh, nothing stays the same. But the view is always better from far outside the frame. 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 I watch them getting older and fade into the past. reaching for her hand. Is she still his woman? Is he still her man? Everything is changing. We all move along. I never use the biggest words to write the smallest song. Nothing lasts forever, or nothing stays the same. But the view is always better from far outside. Oh, far outside. Oh, far outside the frame. 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 Far
What a cool sound. I could definitely hear the Derek and Almond's influence in it, with a bit of his band's modern twist for sure. Conor's buddy Chase has a great voice too. Anyway, for now, hope everyone is hanging in there during the super fun and wonderful 2020. Please check out Tedeschi Trucks Podcast on Instagram. That's at Tedeschi Trucks Podcast. And remember to tap subscribe or follow on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. And I also wanted to promote the Susan Tedeschi fan page on Facebook. They are friends of the show. And just a heads up with that page, Monday is Stormy Monday, share your favorite blues. Tuesday is Tedeschi Tuesday, show and tell pictures and memories and more. Wednesday is Women's Wednesday, share your favorite female artists. Friday is Favorite or Free for All Friday, share your favorite tunes. And Sunday is Soul Sunday, share your favorite gospel and soul influenced music artists. It's a cool page, the Susan Tedeschi fan page on Facebook. Check that out for sure. And I think that's about all I got for today. I appreciate you guys listening. Thanks as always, and let's talk soon. Later.